WWE has really kicked things into high gear since the Give Divas a Chance movement. For the first time in practically ever, Divas matches are starting to get over 10 minutes. And this has been one of the highlights of Nikki's title reign, is that even with all the wasted potential, her matches have been killing it since she's been the champion. Just looking at the series of Nikki versus Paige matches, from the psychological main event match to their fast-paced back-and-forth rematches. It's rare that two divas can have that many matches against each other and manage to make each one just as good as the last. There's a certain chemistry that these two have that just blends together to make for a perfect combination. That, along with their extended movesets and styles, allows them to add something different to each match instead of making it feel like we're watching the same match over and over again. And this week, they put on what was at least a top 10, top 5 diva match in Raw history. Not only was the match quality really good, the crowd was into it. It had hype, it told a good story, it went over 10 minutes, and it was unpredictable because you really could believe that WWE would want Nikki to drop the belt before WrestleMania. So it also had that excitement level that you don't get from a lot of matches these days. Nikki even pulled out all her best moves for this one. So this was an all-around great match. Then there was Nikki versus Naomi. Now I always said that these two had potential to be one of the best combinations of clashing styles in the division. Now they didn't really show that potential at first, but after their live SmackDown match, you saw just how well they clicked in mixing their athletic and power styles together to make for a solid back and forth match that almost felt like a pay-per-view quality match on SmackDown. And then we get to the main event match where they do it again with even more time to put on an even better performance than their last match. This one was more well-paced. It had the right moves at the right time. They gelled really well together. There was a good mixture of both fast-paced and slow-paced moments. The psychology was some of Nikki's best. And this was an example of why I thought these two would work so well in the first place. Nikki got a little bit more creative with some of her offense and targeting Naomi's leg because Naomi is one of the few divas that's good enough to sell that type of offense. So I think overall, this was a great match. It had everything that you could possibly want out of a wrestling match, except for that big match feel. And then there was Nikki versus AJ in what was the longest Divas match in Raw history. Now, the only problem with this match was that AJ doesn't have the same chemistry that Nikki has with Paige and Naomi. But even without that chemistry, this was still a pretty solid match. I think it could have benefited from a different pace though. They tried to go for a slower, more psychological style, when this should have been more like their TLC match, which was more back and forth, better spots, and I think better chemistry in the way that they combined their moves and sold the match. In fact, my only problem with the TLC match was that I thought it got cut a little bit too short, just as it was starting to get good. But just like the TLC match, I think the best parts of this Raw match were the first and the last few minutes of the match, where they really pulled out all the stops. But it's not just the matches. WWE has turned things around when it comes to the story as well. They've gotten more backstage segments, in-ring promo time. They were on commentary together. They got their own WrestleMania video package. And this week on SmackDown, they're going to have an amazing face-to-face promo confrontation where Nikki is going to verbally destroy AJ's life, just like I've been waiting for her to do since last year. And sure, when you look at it from a week-to-week basis, this feud doesn't seem all that special. But when you look at it from an overall standpoint of what it represents and some of the major highlights, this is a pretty significant rivalry. When you think about it, this is the Trish versus Lita, the two conflicting and most defining personalities of the reality era. So while a lot of us would have preferred a fatal four-way with a Brie face turn, Stephanie McMahon playing a role, this tag match is not just a random tag match. This is a defining WrestleMania match. So overall, Nikki's title reign has delivered some great matches, a great rivalry, and may be remembered as the turning point of the Divas division. So overall, she's had a pretty good reign. It could have and could still be a lot better if they revisited the corporate champion angle, but even without that, she's still been killing it. And if she keeps the title for a couple more months and continues down this path, I may be able to say that she is the greatest Divas champion of all time. Because, I mean, she's already the greatest diva of all time, but that's beside the point. TNA Knockouts Knockdown 2014. This was a request from pay-per-view prediction winner Jacob Manchester, and I have to say, even though the matches weren't as good as last year, I thought this was an overall better show. Every knockout had a personality, they got mic time, the talent was good, and it was an overall fun show. Although the way the show started off was pretty bad though. This was flashbacks to the original NXT, with bad hosting, bad jokes, a bad crowd, and making everyone in the ring look bad. But the one highlight of this segment was, ironically, also a throwback to NXT, the interaction between Derek Bateman and Maxine. And it was for that reason that I expected that Maxine would definitely make it to the knockout roster. But unfortunately, none of the knockouts from this show did. And that sucks because I liked a lot of the talent on here. And we had Scarlett Bordeaux, who is one of the hottest, most charismatic women from the Indies. Now, I'm not sure how good Scarlett is in the ring, especially based off this match, which was almost a complete squash, where the only move she got in was a code breaker. But even without 5-star wrestling skills, from what I can tell, Scarlett has a complete package. So it's surprising to me that TNA never at least gave her a shot. And then there was Rebby Sky, who is another name that I'm familiar with and I'm kind of a fan of. She has a good personality and some decent qualities, versus Velvet Sky. And this was pretty much the Divas match of the night, which had more focus on having fun and being sexy, which is what you can expect from two personalities like Velvet Sky and Rebby Sky. It works for what it is. But when the match got into high gear, it got pretty good. Rebby pulled out a few good moves and looked pretty impressive toward the end. Now, I still think it was stupid that Velvet was the only knockout to lose her match, but again, that's just another example of how, even though Velvet was booked as the weakest knockout on the roster, she was still the biggest star in that entire division. Veda Scott also had a match against, I think, the broomstick that won the 2004 Royal Rumble, and I like Veda Scott. I put her on the same league as Scarlett in that I can see a lot of potential in her. And even here, she showed a little bit of character flexibility. She started out as the quirky, awkward, geek type of character, and then she quickly turned that around and transitioned into the vicious but athletic, cocky heel. So that's pretty impressive. Then it was Havoc versus Madison Rayne, and this match showed what Havoc was capable of, not being just a typical sluggish monster whose only redeeming quality is that she's big. She proved in this match that she could work, and that's why she got signed. And even though this was just a typical monster match, Havoc showed off some unique moves, displayed personality, and looked good. I still think it's weird that Madison beat her on her very first match. I mean, it makes sense because she was going to be the queen of the knockouts, but still, something about that never felt right. Then it was Taryn Terrell versus Maxine. And I like this dynamic. This is one of those pairings that just looks good on paper. Maxine got some mic time before the match to remind us why she was the best mic worker from the original NXT to not get caught up. And it makes me wonder even more how TNA never picked Maxine up. I figured that being a former WWE diva, having a connection to EC3, and being an all-around solid talent would have been enough to get her signed, but now she's on Lucha Underground, and that's TNA's loss because she is killing it on there as well. Then it was Santana Garrett versus Mia Yim. Now you guys know that I'm a Santana Garrett fan, and it was at last year's pay-per-view that I first saw the potential that she had. But her matches on TNA have been leaving me pretty disappointed in that she's just been average, and even I was starting to question how good her wrestling ability really was. But this match right here proved to me what Santana Garrett was really capable of. This was easily the best wrestling match of the night. And I have to give Mia Yim a huge chunk of the credit for that as well, because sometimes that's all it takes is an extremely talented wrestler that knows how to get the best out of their opponent. So I was impressed. The final match of the tournament was Brooke Tessmacher versus Deanna. I thought Deanna was decent. She had a certain likability factor in her personality, and she makes for a decent underdog face that you would want to root for. And even though we had a lot of these sexy, conceited, show-off heels throughout the night, I think Brooke may have played a role better than anyone else on the show, up there with Angelina and Velvet. Her character was on fire throughout this match. Then it was the Queen of the Knockouts Battle Royal. Now, these types of matches are never really much to talk about, and this one was no different. Madison Rayne won the match, and I don't think this was the best decision. I mean, it's better than having no winner like last year, but this should have been Angelina Love or Taryn Terrell. But this was taped around May when they were trying to build Madison Rayne as the top face of the division, so it makes sense from that standpoint. So that was Knockouts Knockdown 2014 and highlights of the Bella vs. Paige feud. Now there likely won't be a review for Raw this week, so you can be sure to leave your predictions for WrestleMania in the comments below and join in on the pay-per-view prediction game, where the winner will get one request of their choice, whether that's a video request, a suggestion, something you want us to do in our videos, you want me to date your sister, I'll do that, whatever you want. And for everyone that's still waiting on their video request, we have all the requests recorded and we will release them after WrestleMania. Anyway, this has been MTO with the MTO More Reviews saying yada yada yada, blah blah blah. See you bitches at WrestleMania.